Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Glad to have you here. It's going to be a great evening just for you. Thank you. We're going to catch up on Buffalo Bill's Wild West stories, and it's going to be a great evening. Now, remember, we had the last time we had, what's his name? We had Danforth, Lieutenant Danforth. He was saving a Buffalo Bill and from the stagecoach. Yes, Dick Danforth. He was flying up to catch the horses on the stagecoach. He had to shoot a couple of them just to stop it so it wouldn't go over the cliff and kill Buffalo Bill. And he was on his way to Fort Advance when he was captured almost by, or he's captured by Boyd Bennett's gang. Now, remember that? Anyway, I hope you like these. It's just for fun. It's something to listen to in the evening. Remember them old radio shows, people would gather around and listen to in the comfort of their home by the radio and the firelight of their stove in the evenings on a long winter's night. Well, sit back and let's take a shot back into yesteryear where we're going to be talking just like on those radio shows. So get yourself something nice to drink or eat or munch along. And I am going to get right into Buffalo Bill's Wild West stories. And we're going to pick up right where we left off last time at chapter 16. As soon as I can screen share here, and chapter 16, we will pick up Buffalo Bill. And there we go. I'll put myself in the corner there, like that. Anyhow, so chapter 16, Buffalo Bill makes a discovery. Can't go wrong with Buffalo Bill. Okay. Buffalo Bill makes a discovery. The welcome that greeted the Border King upon his return to Fort Advance proved to him how well he stood in the hearts of all, and the men were loud in their thanks for his having saved their money. You are indeed the king of the men of the border, Cody, and if you would only accept a commission, you could readily get it, said Major Baldwin. The troops had told the story. Captain Hinckley and his men had been buried, and all were most revengeful toward Boyd Bennett and his band. 10 days after his return from the unsuccessful search for the outlaws, Lieutenant Danforth and a number of cavalrymen again set out to try to find the band. Buffalo Bill was then away on a scouting trail with Texas Jack, the two going separate ways, but to meet at a given time at a certain place. For a week had the Border King been on the trail without success, and he was thinking of going to meet Texas Jack when he suddenly came upon a spectacle in a little valley and nearly stopped the beating of his heart. So appalling was the scene he had ridden upon. Stern, white-faced men were there, over a score in number, lying where they had fallen in battle for life. There they lay, half stripped of their uniforms, robbed of their weapons, after death, and lying in their foes' hideous, painted savages, Indians, whom their red comrades in their fight from fearful scene had not bore off to burial, though they had found time to tear the dearly prized scalp lock from the heads of their pale-faced enemies. A trooper or two, a redskin, an officer, a chief, a commissioned steed, an Indian pony, all dead. They lay here and there in the valley near the river. And upon the sickening sight where death reigned supreme, where Lieutenant Dick Danforth and his gallant troops still held the field, though slain, Buffalo Bill came just as the sun neared the ridge of the distant hills. He had been following a well-marked trail to suddenly have this scene of carnage burst upon him. So suddenly did the scene break upon him, so unexpected the sight that met his gaze, that man of iron heart and nerves of steel, though he was, he fairly reeled in his saddle, and reining his horse back upon his haunches, with cruel drag upon his bit, he covered his face with his hands, as though to shut out the appalling spectacle. An instant only did the scout show his weakness, and then his face was turned upon the red field that had come like some fearful dream upon his view. White-faced as the dead, with eyes that fairly burned with the fire of rage, lips that were livid and quivered, and hands that trembled, he looked for one full minute upon what lay before him. No movement of man or beast came, as he had hoped, to prove that life yet remained. The death's icy touch had not stilled every pulse. No, he felt, he knew, when he saw the scalped heads of those that lay nearest him, that the red work had been complete. He uttered no word, but dismounting, took off his head and brow sombrero he wore, and with respectful tread moved forward. Slowly his horse followed in his tracks, his ears perked up, his eyes flashing, and nostrils distended, as he invaded the sacred valley of death. From dead to dead the horseman went, his eyes eagerly scanning every face. At last his eye fell upon a heap of slain, upon a slight knoll, and at the base of a low rock. His gaze scanned the field quickly then, and he seemed to feel that there would be found the one he sought for. It was evident that in that spot at the end had come the last act of the fearful drama had been played, and that the curtain of doom had fallen upon the remnant of the gallant band, to raise no more for them in life. A few steps more, and he reached the spot he had sought, and a groan issued from between his shuttered teeth, and he bowed his uncovered head with grief and reverence commingled. There, resting in an altitude that showed he had sunk down fighting to the last, lay Danforth, his left hand grasping the barrel of his revolver, which showed that its charges had been emptied, and that he had been used as a club to use as close quarters, while the right held his sword hilt, and the blade was buried in the body of a painted chief, and was probably the last act of the dying leader and the slaughtered troops. About him lay their foes, piled in heaps around their last rally. Danforth, dead. Indian work this is, but back up of it there is a pale-faced hand, and I meant to ferret out his red deed and bring retribution, of whom retribution should be justly fall. Like trumpet tones his words had rung out, the storm following the calm. And then he dropped upon one knee, and raising his hand toward heaven, he said, in a voice that quivered with sorrow and passion, "Yes, here upon this field, by the dead body of him who saved my life, I swear vengeance." Having uttered his oath upon bended knee, he sprang suddenly to his feet, as there fell upon his ears a human voice crying in threatening tones, "And I swear, Buffalo Bill, that you shall never keep that oath your lips have just uttered." Chapter 17. The Scalp Lock. The words that broke upon the ears of Buffalo Bill as he stood there, surrounded by the dead and believing himself to be the only living human being near, felt like a voice from the tomb, and for once the noted plainsman was mortally unnerved. But when his eyes fell upon the speaker and he saw that he had an old and deadly foe to deal with, and he heard the threatening words, he instantly became himself again and said in a tone that was reckless in its indifference, "Well, we meet again, and as before, you hold the trump card, for you have me covered, I see, Boyd Bennett." The man addressed stood within 5 feet of him and held a rifle covering his heart. It appears, to all appearances, he was an Indian chief, for he was bedecked with feathers. His face was hideously painted, and he wore the full attire of a redskin, from the moccasins to the war bonnet. At his back, with rifles and arrows covering the scout, were a score of braves who had, with a stealthy tread of panthers, followed their leader to the spot where Buffalo Bill knelt over the body of Danforth. And well did the scout know that he had at the mercy of his foes. "You know me, then, Buffalo Bill?" asked the man, whose words had so startled him. "Yes, beneath your paint and feathers, I recognize the Black Heart," was the fearless reply of the scout. "Have a care, scout, for every word of insult you heap upon me shall be a burning coal upon your head when you come to die." "Yes, when I come to die, but I am one who carries the belief, you accused renegade, that while there is life, there is hope. That belief will do you no good now." "Bah, a barking dog never bites," was the contemptuous reply. The renegade looked as though he was about to shoot the scout in his tracks, but he caught sight of a smile upon his face, and not understanding it, refrained while he said, "You must have help at hand, or you would not be thus defiant, Buffalo Bill." "No, I am alone, and he who once saved me from your vengeance lies stark and dead before you there. Look upon him, man. Look upon these brave men who lie about him, silent in death, and let your coward heart cringe that you, a white man, should have aided the redskins in this red devilish work." Buffalo Bill spoke impetuously, and his eyes flashed fire as he bent them upon the renegade, who did for a moment cower at the words of the scout. But the next instant, with a shrug of his shoulders, he said, "I was white once, Bill Cody, and my blood kindred cast me adrift in the world." "Your own crimes," sneered Buffalo Bill. "Yes, I did sin, and for it I was treated with no mercy, and that I might not die in prison, I came to the boundless land. The world owed me a living and gave me none. So I took to horse stealing and then to stage robbing, and you made the overland trail so hot for me that I had to become a renegade. I swore to have revenge on you, and once the man that corpse saved you from my well-planned scheme to see you die, I vowed that he, too, should feel the weight of my hatred." "You have kept that oath, you accused renegade," said Buffalo Bill with savage earnest. "He dared come near the village of the Sioux, and he and his soldiers were beaten back, overwhelmed, and crushed. And not one of them to tell the story? No prisoners taken?" "Oh, no. Chief Oakheart wanted no prisoners from Danforth's band, and all who charged in here with him are dead, and their scalps adorn the belts of many of a gallant brave. And you fought with the Sioux, added the scout. Yes, and killed as they killed, without mercy. And you do not fear to admit it? Why should I? For I am not speaking to one who will soon be dead, was the reply. It looks that way, I do not deny, Boyd Bennett. But answer me one question. Did you kill Lieutenant Dick Danforth, one of the noblest and bravest men who ever wore a sword and whom I loved as I would a brother? I am sorry to say that I did not. You know who killed him. Yes, I know. It was Chief Red Knife. Buffalo Bill made no reply, but simply smiled, and the renegade asked, would you know why I have returned here? Yes. Why have you dared to come back here among the sacred dead? I will tell you. Oakheart refused to allow Red Knife or any other chief to take the scalp of Danforth, for he fought like a fiend, or friend, or fiend, yes. God bless the old red sinner for that, feverly said Buffalo Bill. But I am Death Killer, the medicine chief, and I have come back myself to take the scalp from the head of the man against whom I swore revenge. Boyd Bennett, accursed though you be, with a heart blackener than the vilest redskin can boast of you, will not do this wrong, cried Buffalo Bill, his voice trembling with emotion. You are mistaken, Cody, was the cool rejoinder. I called a few of my braves to follow me and rode back to take that scalp. I saw you coming hither, and I knew I could not be mistaken in your handsome face and elegant form, and leaving our ponies, we dogged your steps, and you were too much cast down with grief to know your danger. See, I am here, and you are my prisoner, and when you have seen me tear the trophy from yonder head, then will I be wiring a cry of mercy from your stern lips, Buffalo Bill. Never, if this be my last act on earth. With his ringing words, Buffalo Bill suddenly jerked a revolver from his belt and, throwing it forward, fired with the quickness of a flash. Chapter 18. The White Antelope. So rapid and unexpected had been the movement of Buffalo Bill in drawing his revolver and firing it that not one of the warriors who stood behind their renegade chief, some with arrows fitted to their bows and others with rifles covering the heart of the scout, had time to fire, and not even Boyd Bennett himself, who had his weapon pointed at Buffalo Bill, had the instant to touch the trigger before the act, flash, and report came almost together. And yet, swift as had been the act of the scout, one eye had been quick enough to send an arrow upon its errand, and striking the outstretched arm of Buffalo Bill, just as his finger touched the trigger, it buried itself there, and by the shock destroyed his unerring aim. But I've made a daring move, and knowing that death must follow his deed, Buffalo Bill dropped his left hand upon his second revolver, determined to press the fight and die as had his gallant man who lay at his feet. Maddened with rage and thirsting for life of his upon his foe, Boyd Bennett shouted to his warriors to rush upon the scout and take him alive, that he might end his career by cruel torture. But suddenly a slender form darted before the red braves, and with an arrow set in readiness let to fly, covered them, while there came in the Sioux's tongue, "Let the Sioux braves stand back. The white antelope commands it. Like one man, they halted and gazed upon the one who had no command, who so commanded them. And Buffalo Bill, too, riveted his eyes upon the one who had sprung between him and certain death, though he knew full well that the arrow buried in his arm had been sent from a bow he now beheld bent upon his foes. It was a woman that he saw, or rather a young girl, for she was scarcely over 17. Her form was slender and graceful, and her face bore the unmistakable stamp of having other than Indian blood flowing through her veins. Buffalo Bill's long life upon the prairies had made him a skeptic in regard to Indian beauty, and yet he could not but admit that there was the one before him was beautiful. Why was she there? He did not know, but there was one remarkable feature about her that told him who she was. Long, luxurious hair, even stranded of golden hue, contrasted strangely with her complexion of bronze and eyes of black as ebony. The scout had heard of such a girl in the head village of Sioux, and that she was revered and feared by every Indian of the tribe. For this reason, she was called the Sioux Queen, though her real name was White Antelope. And she was here on the red field the warriors of her tribe had made. While these thoughts were flashing through Cody's mind, the renegade spoke, addressing the maiden who still held the threatening antelope, or attitude. Why has White Antelope become the friend of the slayer of her people? For the man before her is Pashashka, the killer. The arrow of the White Antelope still sticks in the arm of Pahashka. Is that the way an Indian treats a friend? Asks the young girl, who's scorned in look and tone. Then the White Antelope yields the pale-faced foe of her people to the medicine chief of her tribe. No, was the decided response. What would the maiden do? Asked the renegade with surprise. She would herself carry Pohaska to her tribe. The White Antelope is no warrior, sneered the renegade. She has just saved the life of the pale-faced medicine chief of her tribe, was the calm retort. At this, Buffalo Bill laughed slightly, for he saw that the shot went home, and his seeming indifference to his peril caused her to turn her eyes upon him. The look was not a stare, it was more, and she scanned him from head to foot. What was her thoughts? None could tell, but as though having decided upon her course of action, she stepped boldly to the side of Buffalo Bill and drew the arrow out of his arm, where it had passed partially through it. The scout never winced at pain, and barring his arm, she bound it up with a piece of soft buckskin, not a word being spoken. The while, though the renegade had his braves watch her intently. Is not the act of White Antelope one of friendship for the paleface? Asked the renegade. When she had dressed the wound as well as she was able to do under the circumstances, the Indian girl made no reply to the renegade, but asked addressing Buffalo Bill, is the paleface Pahaska? Is this the paleface Pahaska? So the Indians call me, was the response. Why is he here? I came on the trail of this renegade paleface there and found here the dead chief, my friend, answered Buffalo Bill, speaking in perfect Sioux, pointing to the dead Danforth, whose stern face looked almost lifelike in the glowing of the declining sun, which fell upon it. Where are the pale-faced brothers of the Pahaska? Buffalo Bill pointed in the direction from whence he had come and said, far away. White Antelope is his foe and the foe of his people. She wishes not to see the wolves and the vultures tear the palefaces in pieces, and she will let Pahaska go to bring his warriors to bury them. You've got the heart to do it, I believe, if you have the nerve to carry it out, said Buffalo Bill bluntly, while the renegade cried savagely, No, you shall not leave this spot alive, Bill Cody. We'll see who wears the breeches in this family, Boyd Bennett, laughed Buffalo Bill, as though assumed in spite of his perils and his continued ensue. Now it's your put, my red-skinned beauty. Without noticing the remark of the renegade, the maiden continued, but the Pahaska must make the White Antelope a promise. I'll do it. White Antelope came from the great chief, Oakheart, who told her to seek the pale-faced warriors and tell them where to find their dead braves. He bids them come here and bury their dead and not follow on the trail of his people. Will the Pahaska tell his big chief the words of Oakheart? I will. And will he then come back and be a captive of Oakheart? She looked him straight in the eye as she asked the question. And Buffalo Bill saw that she meant just what she said, but he asked, Does the White Antelope mean that I am to return to their people after I have guided the soldiers here to see the red work of her braves? She has spoken. And this is the promise she wishes Pahaska to make her. The Indian girl nodded. Why should I return? He is the captive of Medicine Chief now, but White Antelope lets him go free, that his pale-faced braves may not lie here unburied, and that the warriors of his people may take warning not to follow upon him the trail of Oakheart. Will he promise to do this and then come to the village of the Sioux? Buffalo Bill was silent in an instant. If he refused, he knew that she would not protect him from the renegades. If he promised, he would keep the promise, be the end what might it be. But the promise bade fair to him out of the present difficulty he would make it. But he made a mental reservation, too, that after bearing the tidings to the fort and delivering Oakhart's warning, he would go out on to the Indian village, but with a force at his back that would surprise the redskins. I promise, White Antelope, he said. He'll not keep his pledge, cried the renegade. The Pahaska is the foe of my people, but his tongue is straight, said the maiden. But he will come with a force at his back that will burn the Sioux villages and kill her people. Buffalo Bill saw the girl start at this and gave the renegade credit for having divined his purpose. If the Pahaska will do this, he must remain now a captive of Medicine Chief, she said in an injured tone. Don't believe the old liar, White Antelope, for the Pahaska will come alone, answered Buffalo Bill. The White Antelope will believe the White Chief. He is a great scout and can find the trail of Oakheart. Now let him go. By heaven, Buffalo Bill, you leave not this spot alive, cried Boyd Bennett savagely, and he again covered the scout with his rifle. And we're going to stop right there at chapter 18, 19. 19, that's it. Girl's Word. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed that. Wow, that one went a little bit long. And, but hey, it is what it is. We're going to go back to this. Oh, I got to stop sharing. There we go. Hot diggity dog. What a good night. So anyway, that was Buffalo Bill stories. It got kind of exciting there. This poor guy, Dick, got killed off, and Boyd Bennett is dressed like an Indian chief, and Buffalo Bill gets shot in the arm with an arrow and saved by a girl. Who would have figured that? A heroine way back in the day. So without keeping this too terribly long, I hope you enjoyed that. And we'll be back with one more chapter. I think the next time we will get through the whole thing. So we'll finish up the story in Buffalo Bill 7, I guess it will be. So with that, go out and make it a great day, everyone. It's, do something nice for somebody. It's all in the karma of the world. It'll work out towards your advantage. It'll make your day better and somebody else's. So with that, go out and be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. I love you all. Peace, everyone.